A couple of weeks ago, Arteza reached out to me and offered to send me a handful of their products, so I just wanted to let you guys know that these are my honest opinions. I'm not being paid or requested or anything like that to say anything positive, and if anything, I'm trying to be extra harsh on these products just because I was sent them for free and I don't want to have a biased opinion on them because I didn't pay for them. So I will totally let you guys know anything I disliked about these while I was using them. So with that being said, we can get into what they sent me. So first things first, they sent me one of their set of 2s of their watercolor sketchbooks. These ones are the 8.3 by 11.7 inch ones. Each sketchbook comes with 64 pages of 110-pound paper, and this one was a little odd because the spreads alternated between textured and smooth paper, so if you open it up it's textured, smooth as you flip the pages, which is really weird. So if you're looking for a solely textured or solely smooth paged sketchbook, this is probably not for you. These ones do have an elastic band to seal them, as well as a ribbon to mark your place, which are nice features, and they have a really nice cover that attracts so much cat hair. Mine has so much cat hair on it, it's bad. Next up is a watercolor pad. This is the 9 by 12 inch one that comes with 14 sheets of 140-pound paper. This guy is their expert level one, and it specifically says it's two-sided, so I assume that just means it's because there's texture on either side of the page. They do have a lot of different watercolor pads, but this is the only kind that says it's double-sided. I guess that's just the texture thing, and it does have a very pretty texture, so I was very excited to use this paper, and it's very nice paper. Spoiler alert. Next up is a 12 set of metallic gouache. These ones are very similar to their other gouache in terms of it includes the light fastness and transparency information, so that's really nice because you don't often see that out of student grade supplies, so that's very cool. Comes with a huge variety of colors, honestly. This, in my opinion, just from looking at it, is a really nice substitute for Fine Tech or Kuretake sets, just because it has the gold, silver, and bronze, and then some. I also got a set of 15 detail brushes. Comes with 3 different kinds of brushes and 5 sizes of each brushes. And I really appreciate that it actually has the information on the brush itself so you can differentiate what they are, because they all look the same. And last but certainly not least is the 60 set of watercolors that Arteza offers. They have a lot of different watercolors. They have cakes, tubes, and pans, if I recall correctly, and I've really wanted to try them, but I just haven't been able to justify that, because if I'm spending money on more watercolors, I want to be purchasing professional watercolors, and these ones are student grade. I just feel like I'm at the point where if I'm going to be spending my money, I want it to be on nicer than what I have. Not saying right off the bat I was oh yeah, there's no way these are better than what I have, but I'm just looking to expand to professional watercolors. So I was really excited that they sent these ones to me because I've been wanting to try Arteza's watercolors, so I got to spend an hour and a half swatching 72 paints. So first and foremost, like I said, I was excited about the metallic gouache because I do have the Kuretake Starry Nights watercolors, which I really like, but I don't use them super often. I tend to fluctuate and use acrylics more when I'm doing accents on a piece, and when it comes to gold acrylics, they tend to be really freaking thin, and you have to layer them 4,000 times before you actually get solid color. So gouache presented a really cool opportunity because you can use it as an opaque or a transparent medium, and I feel like these ones do a really good job covering stuff, so I really appreciated that. My only complaint about this set, I guess I have 2 complaints about this set, is that depending on where you buy them from, it ranges between $2 to $2 and around 20 cents per tube, and that's more money than I would personally want to spend on it. And they're a little bit chalky, just like the regular gouache that Arteza has, so it just kind of depends. I do see myself using them in the future though, they're very nice. Then when it comes to the watercolors, pros of these watercolors that I noticed was they are very, very pigmented, which is something you don't really get off of cheaper end student grade supplies. I would definitely, if I were to put these on a scale of student grade, I would put them on the lower end just because they are very cheap in terms of price. They range between 65 to 67 cents a tube, so that's a really good deal for watercolors. but I was like really impressed with how pigmented the colors are, because when it comes to cheaper watercolors like the Michaels Cakes or the Reeves watercolors, you don't often see this kind of pigmentation. And you also don't get the weird like liquid separation that comes out of a brand new tube with these ones. Thank God. I had that with Reeves gouache. I've never opened a brand new tube of Reeves watercolor, so I didn't get to experience that firsthand, but I'm sure that's a thing with their watercolors too. However, I will have to say, there's one feature about these watercolors that I was really disappointed about, and that is that they are very definitely chalky. And I really hate to say that, because there are two things about watercolors that really bum me out, and that's when they're not pigmented or when they're chalky. And these ones are absolutely chalky. Some colors are definitely worse than others, but they're just chalky, and it hurts me a lot. I was really hoping they wouldn't be, because honestly, if these watercolors were not chalky, they would be like perfect. Perfect. The tubes don't really match the colors in some instances that come out, and that's fairly normal. You always want to swatch your watercolors, but just a heads up that not all the tubes match. The metallic gouache tubes match really well. I was actually very surprised with how well they matched them, so that's something to take into consideration. But whenever you have new art supplies, you're going to want to swatch them just so you know what colors you're actually getting. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, with professional grade ones, they should match. But, like, I have some Copic markers that really don't look like the color of the cap, so it happens. It's not a guaranteed thing ever. I did really enjoy working with these watercolors. They're very nice to work with. They're very pigmented. The color doesn't often separate. I noticed a little bit of separation in pigment on my plate that I was working off of when it came to, I think it was raw umber. I think it was raw umber. There's so many different colors, it's so hard to keep track. But it wasn't really like a genuine issue. I just noticed it on the plate, and it was fairly easy to mix back in, so that's just something to take note of if that's something that's a no-go for you. Like I said, Arteza does have a lot of different watercolors, and with their tubes they do have sets in 12 and 24 as well, and honestly, I do think that if I have this knowledge, like having this knowledge of these watercolors that I do now and the experiences I've had, would I purchase the set of 60? Honestly, absolutely not. I would not be spending $40 on this set, especially because it's $40. Like, yeah, it comes with a ton of paints, but not all of them are single pigments. There's only like a small handful that are single pigments, meaning that most of these colors you would be able to mix yourself off of the pigments that are in both the 24 and the 12 set. So it's very excessive. I feel like the 60 set is overwhelming for beginners because there's so many colors to choose from, especially if you don't know the medium very well. It can be a lot to have that selection. And I also feel like this selection of colors is kind of unnecessary for experts as well, because you should be able to mix your own watercolors, you should be able to mix your own shades, not necessarily from primary colors. Like, yeah, if you can go from 3 primaries and mix any color, awesome. But, I mean, you should be able to get by with a set of 12 and 24 and be fine. So, that being said, I do think if you're starting off with watercolors, or if you are moving up from Reeves or Michaels Cakes, I think the 12 and 24 sets of watercolors would be a really good option. They're a little bit more expensive per tube doing it that way, but like, these are still really nice paints. The chalkiness for it kills me, but they're still really nice paints. If you're going from someone who has Winsor & Newton Cotmans or the Kuretake Gonzai Tombis, I feel like this set is definitely downgrading from those just because the chalkiness is very, very present within these paints. So, that being said, if you're someone who's, like I said, starting off, these are a good option because they are very cheap, they're very cost efficient, and you do get the pigmentation, and like, they do feel like nice watercolors minus the chalkiness of that. So that's how I feel about the watercolors. The metallic gouache is really nice as well. I did enjoy working with that. I only used it for accents, not entire pieces, but the gouache does have some chalkiness to it, which is okay. I don't mind as much with the gouache because I don't intend to use it on larger scale, and I feel like it's not nearly as chalky as the watercolors. I did really enjoy working with their detail brushes though. My only complaint about them is that the brush handles are a little bit shorter by a couple inches than most of the brushes, well, all of the brushes I work with. So they're just a little bit awkward to hold and store because they're so short, but it really doesn't interfere with the actual like workings of the brush. They work fine. I've used them with acrylic and watercolor before and I've had no issues with them. And they're just very nice. They're very nice. And those ones do like run between 93 and 97 cents per brush. So like I don't see myself needing all 15 of them. So it's a nice set if you want to give away a couple to a friend or like split the cost with them because they are very cheap for just brushes. They don't have any shedding. They don't have any noticeable issues in my opinion. Mine work perfectly fine. So I do like their brushes. That's something that I was considering purchasing and I'm glad I own them. That's something that I would buy having the knowledge I have. So that's how I feel about the brushes. And then on to the paper. So the paper I'm working on right now is the watercolor pad. I'm actually using my own watercolors with this one. I'm using the Shinhan professional watercolors, which are technically the student grade ones, but they're just Shinhan watercolors. I did want to change it up and use my own watercolors and see how they worked with the watercolor paper from Arteza, and I do like it. This watercolor paper from the pad is very expensive paper, but it's really nice paper. I haven't worked with a ton of super nice watercolor paper in my past. Like, I would have to say the nicest watercolor paper I've used is B paper and the Canson Montval paper. I really like the Canson Montval sketchbooks. They hold a ton of water. You can use front and back with no problems. They're just very nice. And I would say that this paper is definitely not the best that's out there because I know there are some papers that will like minor buckle, and while this one didn't buckle a ton, it has very noticeable buckling after the layers of watercolor I put over the entire page. So that is something to take into consideration, but it's super nice paper. I really enjoyed working with this paper. The watercolor sketchbooks I got, I also really like the paper. I'm not a huge fan of smooth paper, so the fluctuation between the textured and smooth, I'm still iffy about. I've been working out of an EO sketchbook and that one is smooth paper, so I'm kind of getting used to smooth paper, but I can definitely say I prefer textured paper, but that paper is also really nice. I've used watercolor on both sides, and yes, it does buckle, but it's not a ton. It doesn't destroy the paper. It's better than the Canson XL mixed media paper by far. That's like the most genuine thing I have to compare it to because while I've used a lot of other watercolor paper, I haven't used them extensively enough to like make a true comparison of them, I feel like. So the paper is nice, and something I really like about the watercolor sketchbook is that the page on the inside of the cover is also covered in watercolor paper. That's really nice. You don't really see that often. I know that's probably a feature out of like bound sketchbooks, but like I feel like normally it's just like some cheap paper on the inside, so that was really nice. Something I would also like to mention is that the prices between Arteza's website and their products listed on Amazon do fluctuate quite a bit, and it's not a situation where it's cheaper on one all the time guaranteed. Some of the products are cheaper on Arteza and some of the products are cheaper on Amazon, and they do fluctuate from what I've seen in the past. Not so much lately, but they have fluctuated in the past. So if you're interested in any Arteza products, I would check on either site. Arteza's website almost always has coupons. I have my own coupon code right now, it's tirameowsu1, but if you have the Honey extension for your PC, I would definitely check that to see if you can get a higher coupon, as well as checking on Amazon, because when I was price checking, I did notice that some things had a coupon on Amazon's website, so just double check to make sure you can get the cheapest thing possible for you. I had a lot of information in this video, so I'm sure I left something out because I don't write scripts because I'm not that organized and I just kind of wing my voiceovers. So if there's any information I left out, it will be in either the description below or I'll make like a pinned comment in the comment section. So just a heads up with that. But as a whole, I do like everything that Arteza did send me. The watercolors were a little bit of a disappointment. By a little bit, I mean they were a big disappointment because of the chalkiness, but that's just me personally. That's how I feel about them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was informative. If you have any questions on the products, please list a comment below and I will reply to it as soon as I see it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.